Hey guys, it's Lotus, and welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to continue on with our read-along of Erha. So, we're up to Chapter 20. Let's begin. Chapter 20. This Venerable One will tell you a story, Part 2. The next morning, the Chen family came back from visiting their relatives. They noticed the clementine tree had fallen over, and its fruits spread all over the ground. There weren't a lot of residents around the area, and only the Lo family was close by. They remembered the way Lo Xianxia had looked gluttonously at the clementines, and at once concluded, the clementines must have been stolen by that unlucky child, Lo Xianxia. Not only had she stolen, out of jealousy, she'd even chopped down the tree. The Chen family immediately went to Scholar Lo, full of accusations. Of course, Scholar Lo wasn't about to handle this kind of humiliation, and he promptly called his daughter over, asking angrily if the clementines had been stolen by her. Lo Xianxia cried as she answered it wasn't her. Then, she was asked if she'd chopped down the tree. Lo Xianxia continued to answer that it wasn't her. And then, she was asked if she'd sneakily eaten any clementines. Lo Xianxia didn't know how to lie, and could only answer that she had. Before she even had time to explain, her flustered and exasperated father ordered her to kneel down. He disciplined her with a ruler in front of the Chen family, and as he beat her, he said, "Raising girls is inferior to raising boys. How could you commit this kind of deceitful act at such a young age? Ridiculous! An embarrassment to your father. As your punishment, you will not be allowed to eat today. Face the wall for 3 days. Painstakingly repent until you can start anew." "Papa, it wasn't me! It really wasn't me!" "Don't you dare talk back to me!" Nobody believed her. Although the lower cultivation world was in a disorderly state, Butterfly Town was an exception. The residents of this town had always lived simple and honest lives, and nobody even locked their doors at night. To say that a lunatic covered in blood had turned up in the middle of the night? Who would believe that? The skin on Lo Xianxian's hands was left raw and bleeding from all the rulers striking. The Chen family watched on coldly. Only the oldest boy was different. He tugged on the corner of his mother's clothing, as if wanting to say something. His mother didn't pay him any attention. Left with no choice, he furrowed his rather well-proportioned face and stood off to the side, unwilling to continue watching. That night, Lo Xianxia, too afraid to return inside, crouched under the roof of her house and miserably carried out her punishment. Her father was a scholar, and thievery was the most intolerable thing to him. He tended to dwell on things, and was nothing but stubborn. There was no point talking to him, as he refused to listen to reason. After a day of hunger, Lo Xianxia was beginning to feel faint. Suddenly, a small voice called out to her, "Miss Lo." Lo Xianxia turned around, and noticed a head with well-proportioned facial features sticking out over the earthen walls. It was the boy that had tried to plead for her earlier that day, the eldest son of the House of Chen, Chen Bohuan. Chen Bohuan looked around, and after making sure no one was around, he climbed over the earthen wall. He took out a hot mantou from within his robes, and stuffed it into her hand without any explanation. "I saw you standing by the foot of this wall for the entire day, with nothing to eat. This mantou's for you. Eat it fast." Lo Xianxia was shy by nature. Though she had lived here for quite a few months already, she had barely exchanged any words with the boy next door. Right now, looking at him at such close proximity, she couldn't help but back away a couple of steps, hitting her head against the wall with a bump. She stammered, I can't take it. Papa won't let me. He said..." She spoke incoherently and couldn't form any full sentences the entire time. Chen Bohuan said, "Aiya, your father only knows how to speak like a book. Why do you bother with him this much? You'll get sick from this kind of starvation. Eat up before it gets cold." The mantou was white and tender, soft and fluffy, still hot enough to steam. Lo Xianxia lowered her head and stared at it for a moment, and she swallowed her saliva with a gulp. However, she really was too famished. Regardless of gentleman behavior this or gentleman behavior that, she grabbed the mantou and stuffed her face with it, and in no time it was all gone. After she finished, she looked up with her round eyes. The first full sentence she said to Chen Bohuan was, "The clementine tree wasn't chopped down by me, and I didn't want to steal." Chen Bohuan was taken aback for a moment. Then he slowly started to smile. But none of them believed me. Under his gaze that held no contempt, Lo Xianxian gradually began to open up. Her grievances, like ice and snow melting, began to pour out. She opened her mouth and let out a wah, and began to wail as she wiped her tears. "None of them believed me. I didn't steal. I didn't steal." Chen Bohuan patted her frantically. "I know you didn't steal. Aiya, you stood under the tree every day, never taking a single clementine. If you wanted to steal, you would have done it a long time ago." "It wasn't me. It wasn't me." She wailed even harder, tears and snot trickling down. Chen Bohuan continued to pat her. "It wasn't you. It wasn't you." The two of them began to grow more familiar with each other just like this. Later, a homicide occurred in the neighboring village. A couple of nights ago, a blood-soaked bandit broke into a house and demanded for a room to stay the night. The owner refused, and so the bandit killed the entire family. Then he casually slept through the night in the corpse-filled room and didn't leave until the next day. But he didn't leave just like that. Using blood, he wrote a long and eloquent essay on the walls. He documented all the wonderful deeds that he'd done, as if he was afraid that the world wouldn't know about the existence of such a fiend. The news spread like wildfire, and soon reached Butterfly Town. After comparing the times, it was the exact night that Lo Xianxian had met the lunatic Gaga. Scholar Lo and the Chen family were all left speechless. The two families got a lot closer after the misunderstanding was resolved. The Chen couple realized Lo Xianxian was really cute and a hard-working and thoughtful beauty. Considering their own family circumstances, it was probably difficult to find a better daughter-in-law, and thus they arranged for an engagement between Chen Bohuan and Lo Xianxian. Once they reached adulthood, they would formally have a ceremony. Scholar Lo thought his daughter and Chen Bohuan were a pretty good match, and thus he happily agreed. Time passed day by day. If Scholar Lo hadn't been interested in the art of fragrance, perhaps the two families would have led the modest but content life they had initially imagined for themselves. But if there was anyone to blame, it was Scholar Lo for creating, even accidentally, the 100 butterfly fragrance. The fragrance and scent was nothing special, not particularly different from the ones commonly found in town, but it had a benefit that the other fragrances did not have. The scent lasted for 100 days, lingering endlessly. The 100 butterfly fragrance stayed scented for a very long time, and was exactly the type of high-quality and inexpensive product that every household sought after. Scholar Lo believed in everything is inferior, only knowledge is superior. Although he created the fragrance, he wasn't willing to sell it, and believed it would ruin his identity. He wouldn't sell it, but of course someone else would have their mind on it. Madame Chen tried to obtain the recipe from Scholar Lo, and encouraged him to open up a store, only to be rejected by him. After a few times, Madame Chen didn't want to keep making a fool of herself, so she no longer brought up the matter. However, deep down in her heart, she firmly remembered this. The year that Lo Xianxian turned 15, an opportunity came. Scholar Lo, who had always been sickly, contracted tuberculosis and eventually passed away after a few months of suffering. As Lo Xianxian's mother-in-law, even though they hadn't officially been married yet, the sentiments were there. She helped carry out the funeral, busying back and forth. Lo Xianxian was moved to tears. However, she didn't realize that Madame Chen harbored hidden intentions, but they were indeed hideous. While she organized Scholar Lo's belongings, she quietly swiped the recipe for the perfume. That night, Madame Chen lit up an oil lantern, full of excitement and ready to read the recipe. However, after only one glance, she was left dumbfounded. Scholar Lo's handwriting was like a dance between a dragon and a phoenix. The characters were written in an elegant, confident, cursive script. After staring at it for half a day, she still could not understand a single word. Left without a choice, she could only quietly put the recipe back. After a few months, after Lo Xianxian had calmed down, she invited the girl over for a meal. During their casual chatter, she unintentionally brought up 100 butterfly fragrance. Lo Xianxian thought to herself, the recipe had no use if it was just tucked away in the house. Madame Chen had always been kind to her. If she wanted it, she could give it to her. So she took out her father's possessions and even helped Madame Chen interpret the writing. Little by little, she sorted out the complex recipe. Madame Chen was over the moon. Once she obtained the recipe, she began to plan for the opening of a fragrance powder shop with her husband. Of course, at that time, Madame Chen still treasured this gentle and sensible future daughter-in-law. The older she got, the more beautiful she became. Even though her family had met misfortunes, her appearance was 1 in 100. Quite a few young men from the town had begun to notice her. Complications could arise the longer they waited, Madame Chen thought to herself. They needed to take care of this matter as quickly as possible. However, Lo Xianxian had just lost her father. According to the traditions of Butterfly Town, if both of one's parents passed away, one could not marry within 3 years. But how could Madame Chen wait for 3 years? She thought it through and through, and came up with a solution. That day, Lo Xianxian was braiding the hair of the youngest daughter from the Chen family. She had a close friendship with this girl. Every day it was Lo Jie this and Lo Jie that, the youngest daughter following her around like a little tail. Madame Lo stepped into the courtyard and called Lo Xianxian into the inner hall. She said to her, Xianxian, you and Bo Huan are childhood sweethearts, and also had an engagement. Now that your father has passed, you are all alone, and life has been quite difficult. You were supposed to marry into our family this year, but the 3 years rule has to be met, and now you can't even marry. So I thought, after these 3 years, how old would you be? Lo Xianxian lowered her head and didn't say anything, but she was clever and could guess at what Madame Chen was about to say next. Her cheeks began to turn pink. Sure enough, Madame Chen continued, living alone is difficult and tiring. Why not this? Marry into our family first. We can do the ceremony behind closed doors. Keep it quiet from outsiders. If anybody asks, you can tell them I'm just looking after you. This way, we can carry out the customs and not be scrutinized by others. Your father below will be at ease as well. Once the 3 years are over, we shall have a proper ceremony in style. Is that alright? That is not alright, okay? First of all, this is tricking her into a marriage and taking advantage of her. She already took advantage of the recipe and now she's gonna secretly have her son marry her? She's gonna be like a secret mistress in a way if no one knows. These words all sounded like they were all for the sake of Lo Xianxian. As someone who had no bad intentions and would therefore never imagine others to have them, she agreed. Later, through the sales of 100 butterfly fragrance, the Chen family became wealthy. They moved out of their old home and purchased a large piece of land in town. With much building and renovations, they became a big, influential family. And Lo Xianxian thus became a shadow, hidden within this big family, as someone who hardly showed her face. Oh, poor Lo Xianxian, this is so unfair to her. Everybody in town really thought that the reason why Lo Xianxian lived with them was purely because Madame Chen was kindly looking after her. They didn't know that she and Chen Bo Huan had already been married. Although a little unhappy about this kind of lifestyle, Lo Xianxian only thought her mother-in-law had done it to avoid rumors, and it was all for her own good, so she didn't have any complaints. Plus, Chen Bo Huan treated her with sincerity, and their time spent together was sweet and loving. They were only waiting for the 3 years to pass, when everything would return to normal. But the day of the official marriage ceremony, the day that Lo Xianxian was waiting for, never came. Oh no. The Chen family's business was flourishing, and Chen Bo Huan was quite handsome. Soon enough, it wasn't just the girls in Butterfly Town who noticed. Even the daughters of rich families in the neighboring villages started eyeing the eldest Chen Gongzi. Bit by bit, Madame Chen began to waver. She's gonna take back her promise of letting them get married, oh no! When she'd arranged the engagement between the kids back then, it was because they had been a pleasant family and weren't going to find any better, and so she had hurriedly laid claim to Lo Xianxian. Who could have anticipated this reversal in fortune? That the Chen family would one day become this wildly successful? When she looked at Lo Xianxian now, she felt that the girl wasn't pretty enough, or clever enough, that she was dumb and dull like her damn dry tree root of an old man. The more she looked, the more she found the girl irritating. What a terrible mother-in-law. She regretted it a little, until Mistress Yao's appearance turned her a little into completely. Mistress Yao was the governor's pampered daughter, tomboyish and with a preference for martial attire. One day, returning from the hunt atop a fine horse, she passed by a fragrance store and stopped to look. But rather than picking out any fragrances, she instead picked out the handsome and hard-working young man inside the shop. That young man was none other than Chen Bohuan, Lo Xianxian's husband in all but name. Oh no, this rich daughter has her eyes set on Chen Bohuan, and because no one knows that Lo Xianxian is married to him, he's probably gonna, the mother, Madame Chen, is probably gonna make him marry someone else who's more, has a higher reputation, higher esteem. Oh, poor Xianxian. Okay, oh no, we know where it's going. We know it's an unhappy ending for her. Author's notes. Chuaning, serious expression. This incident teaches us that secret engagements are not advisable. Without any legal documentation, it's very easy to cut ties, with no liability involved. Mo Wei Yu, innocent expression. I think a few chapters ago someone had a marriage ceremony with me in secret, but I can't remember clearly. Who was he? I was planning on taking responsibility for this, but since he doesn't want this, then never mind. What a player, oh my gosh. Okay. So, yeah, we didn't see any Chuaning or Moran in this chapter. This was still just continuing on with Lo Xianxian's story. So, to recap, Lo Xianxian took the fall for the destruction of the clementine tree, and she got beaten up by her father and shunned by the Chens, but then later on, the eldest Chen son, Chen Bohuan, took pity on her and they struck up a secret friendship. Then later on, they found out that there really was a crazy lunatic covered in blood who chopped down the tree and had committed other heinous crimes. So they ended up reconciling the two families. Her father, Lo Xianxian's father, managed to develop this amazing 100-day fragrance or 100-year fragrance. I think it was 100 days, right? But he didn't want to sell it for money, and so Madame Chen devised a plan to steal the formula and coerced Lo Xianxian into telling her how to make the perfume after her father had died. And then she promised Lo Xianxian that she would marry her to her son, only to now want to take back her words and her promises. And it's really easy for her to do that since no one in the town actually knows that Lo Xianxian and Chen Bohuan are married, because it was a secret marriage ceremony. Oh, poor Xianxian. Oh no, I'm gonna be so sad for her in the next chapter. Okay, let's go on to chapter 21. Chapter 21. This venerable one will tell you a story, part 3. Here we go. The governor's precious daughter Yao had a spirited personality. She even forgot about food and drink once she got home, and spent all her time pestering her papa to go ask around about this Chen Bohuan person. Although Chen Bohuan was already married, the ceremony had been done behind closed doors. Who on the outside would know? The townspeople didn't even know about the arranged betrothal between the Lo and Chen families from way back. And so it was that the precious Mistress Yao was informed that this Chen Gongzi was unmarried. He was a bachelor, supposedly. The governor spared no effort in looking into this person, and in the end decided that this young man Chen was a capable man with a gentle temperament and a satisfactory family situation, so he sent a messenger to the Chen couple with a marriage proposal. On hearing this, landlord Chen was so full of regret that his intestines nearly turned blue. They politely told the governor's messenger that they need some time to think it over, closed the door, and immediately started arguing with each other. Landlord Chen yelled, "Look where your rushing got us. That broke scholar died early, so his daughter should have been in mourning for 3 years. If you hadn't urged them to get married ahead of time, our son could have still gotten out of it. Look at this mess now." Madame Chen was just as anxious. "Oh, so you're blaming me now? Weren't you the one who wanted to arrange the betrothal back then? This is the governor's precious daughter we're talking about here. How could that Lo Xianxian even hope to compare?" What terrible in-laws. The pair of old bastards argued behind closed doors till they were red in the face and out of strength, both breathing roughly across the table. Landlord Chen asked, "What should we do? Maybe we should turn the governor down." "That's what you should do, if you were moral and upright people who kept your promises." Madam Chen said, "Absolutely not. Our family is counting on this precious mistress for fame and fortune." Landlord Chen shot back angrily, "Do you really think the treasured daughter of the Yao family will be willing to be a concubine? Do you? Our son already has someone. How are we going to squeeze in another? And besides, look how in love they are." Madam Chen was quiet for a while. Then her eyes lit up and she muttered, "Say, old Chen, the way I see it, no one outside our family even knows about this thing between Lo Xianxian and our son." Look at this scheming witch. There was silence for a moment while Landlord Chen stared blankly, before suddenly understanding his wife's meaning. He was shaking a little, half from apprehension, half from excitement. You mean, if no one knows about it, then the marriage never happened," Madam Chen said. "We'll chase her out one way or another. If asking doesn't work, then we'll just use force. Everyone knows our son is yet unmarried. And do you remember that incident where she stole clementines when she was younger? As long as all of us stick to the story, even if she grows extra mouths to cry about it, who would believe her?" Landlord Chen strode to the door to make sure it was closed tight, then sidled over. The two of them began arguing like a pair of fighting cocks a mere moment ago, but now they were huddled together, scheming in quiet whispers. This is so terrible. Not only are they gonna take back the marriage and engagement, but they're also gonna ruin her reputation so that no one believes her. They're literally the scum of the earth. Oh my gosh. You know what? Chu Ning, Maran, why don't you just let her get rid of the family? Honestly, I don't think anyone's gonna miss them. Landlord Chen said, "I don't think it'll work." "Why not? Our son will never agree to it. He's like Lo Xianxian ever since he was little. But now you want him to just up and ditch her? Do you think he'll go along with that?" Madam Chen thought for a while, then patted her husband's hand and said, "Don't you worry, I'll take care of it. I don't care that my son is deeply in love with his wife. I'm gonna break them up for money." Before long, Madam Chen suddenly came down with a grave illness. A grave illness. She suddenly got sick. It was a strange illness. The doctor couldn't find anything wrong, but she was unhinged day in, day out, muttering nonsense and insisting that she had been possessed by a ghost. Landlord Chen was worried sick. He invited a Taoist priest who carried a horsetail whisk and an air of Taoist propriety. The priest pinched his fingers together and discerned that there was something in the Chen family that meant ill will towards Madam Chen, and that if not resolved, she would not live to see next year. Chen Bohuan was very filial and anxiously asked, "What bears ill will toward my mother?" The priest walked around for quite a while in an enigmatic pretension before saying it was a beauty who never sees the sun. They're blaming it on Lo Xianxian. Oh my gosh, what terrible people. Everyone in the room was shocked. One by one, the Chen brothers all turned to stare at Lo Xianxian. Lo Xianxian was just as shocked. Ever since she had been little, others had always said such things about her. That she was unlucky, that she brought misfortune on all those around her, that she had killed her mother at birth, then her brother, and then her father. Now, the fingers were pointing at her again, saying that she was going to kill her mother-in-law. Distressed, the Chen brothers took turns talking to her, asking her to leave, saying that no one outside knew that she was married, her reputation was still intact. They would give her some money and she could go find another family. Lo Xianxian was anxious and frightened, worried that she really was the one cursing Madam Chen, and she cried day after day. Oh, poor girl, I can't believe they're doing this to her. They're completely gaslighting her. Chen Bohuan's heart ached, watching his mother grow weaker by the day, stuck between the two. He didn't want Xianxian to leave, but also didn't want his mother to suffer. He lost weight rapidly. You know, what he could have done was that him and Lo Xianxian could have just moved to a different part of the town and not lived in the same house as Madam Chen. That probably would have done the trick, you know? But obviously it wouldn't work because we know Madam Chen is faking and lying. Ah, poor Lo Xianxian. Eventually, the Chen brothers had had enough. One day, while their eldest brother was out, they went to find their sister-in-law. Lo Xianxian was in the greenhouse making 100 butterfly fragrance when they found her. They rushed in and smashed all her tools. She was covered in the powder. It was as if the heavy scent soaked into her bones, impossible to wash out. The brothers surrounded her at first, sermonizing about principles and such. Woman's duty this, parents before wife that. But Lo Xianxian was resilient. She was timid but stubborn, crying that she didn't want to leave, begging them to please think of another way. The second Chen brother grew agitated. He stepped up and slapped her. I can't believe he laid his hand on her. He stepped up and slapped her, demanding, "You harbinger of disaster. You're going to curse our mother to death. If there was another way, would your dad have died? Would your mom? What about your brother, living or dead unknown?" With his one hit, the others took their cue, rushing in as well and closing in around her, with punches and kicks, yelling, "Get the F out, unlucky pest, bringer of death." They're beating her up! Oh my gosh, this poor girl! These brothers were of one mind with their mother, and have been in on her plan since long ago. Jumping on this chance while the eldest brother was out, they worked together to drive Lo Xianxian out, threatening to beat her every day if she dared to come back. She had no family anyway. Even if they beat her to death, no one would care to get justice for her. That night, it was snowing. Lo Xianxian was tossed out into the snow, her entire body covered in blue and purple. One shoe had even fallen off. She crawled forward slowly, choked with sobs like the cries of a dying cub. The night grew deeper. With the snow falling like this, everyone was staying inside. She crawled in the endless snow, not knowing where to go, not knowing where she could go. The Chen brothers were right. She had no family, no father, no brother, no one to turn to, no one who could shelter her. This pure white world was vast, but it had no place for her. Her body was frail to start with, and she wasn't wearing much when she had been chased out. Shivering, her legs and feet quickly became numb and lost all feeling. She crawled to the outskirts of the town, to the temple of the ghost mistress, taking shelter inside, curling into herself, lips blue from the cold, heart cold from the sorrow. They kicked her out without any clothes? She looked up at the painted, splendid clay idol and couldn't help the tears rolling down her cheeks. She thought about the customs of the lower cultivation realm, where marriages should be witnessed by a master of ceremonies. But back then, all she had was a red flower tucked behind her ear when she, smiling, had knelt across from Chen Bohuan and bowed to the ground. Had the ceremony behind closed doors been no more than a dream, had the blushing face in the copper mirror that day been a mere reverie born of her deepest desires? Okay, wait, let me say that sentence again. Had the ceremony behind closed doors been no more than a dream? Had the blushing face in the copper mirror that day been a mere reverie born of her deepest desires? They gaslit the poor thing, oh my gosh! She knelt before the statue of the ghost mistress, dragging her frozen body that grew heavier by the minute, kowtowing again and again, tears mixed with laughter. Courting here to become husband and wife, conjugal love never to be doubted, joy in this eve. She grew dizzy, vision blurring. It was as if a sheen of moonlight lit up a mirage of that year, in that yard, when she cried, "It wasn't me! It wasn't me! I didn't steal the clementines!" But repeated rumors become fact. Gossip is a frightful thing. No one would listen to her side of the story. Even now, she knew that, even if she were to go and cry to people, even if she were to swear up and down that she was Chen Bohuan's properly wedded wife, no one would believe her. She was still the little girl by the low wall that no one would listen to, just the same as back then. Nothing had changed. At least that time, there was still someone who would climb over the wall and press a steamy white mantou into her hands and say to her, "You must be hungry, hurry and eat." But where was that person now? When he returned and couldn't find her, would he fret? Or would he secretly breathe a sigh of relief because his mother wouldn't be cursed by her anymore? Lo Xianxian curled up in the temple, the tears she shed slowly drying. She whispered, "Mistress of ceremonies, I want to be with him. I'm his wife. There was no one to witness our wedding. You are a ghost mistress and don't deal with living people, but I can only talk to you." Her last words came out a broken sob. "I didn't lie. I didn't lie." The snow continued falling without a sound in the long, silent night. The next day, some townspeople passing by the temple found Lo Xianxian's ice-cold body. The poor thing passed away. She died from the cold. Oh my gosh. Her story is so pitiful. The Chen family, excluding Chen Bohuan, are all terrible. The father and the mother schemed. All the Chen brothers were in on it. Honestly, they get what they deserve. They reap what they sowed. Let them be destroyed by the ghost mistress and the curse of Lo Xianxian. I'm rooting for her. I think we all are, right? Okay, that's the end of chapter 21, but let me read the author's note. Author's notes. Chu Ning. Don't block my way. Let me kill their entire family. If the sect leader asks, it's on me. Yeah, you go, Shizun. Mo Wei Yu grabs onto Chu Ning. Your Honor, please calm down. Your Honor, please return to the bench. Chu Ning is all of us. Yes, get revenge for this poor girl. Okay, that's the end of chapter 21. So, to recap, we finished Lo Xianxian's story. So, the governor or the general's daughter, Yao, fell in love at first sight with Chen Bohuan, and Madame Chen decided that no one knows that Lo Xianxian is married to her son, right? So they decided to hatch a plan to kick her out. Madame Chen pretended to be crazy and to be cursed by the resentment, quote-unquote, evil ill intentions of Lo Xianxian. And then all the Chen brothers worked together to beat her up and kick her out of the house physically. And then she crawled her way to the temple of the ghost mistress. And in her last dying moments, she wanted to try to prove herself that she was innocent and that she wasn't evil, she wasn't bad. But she died without knowing if anyone actually cared about her. And this all happened while her husband was out of town, so he didn't know what happened. Now, I don't remember when I originally read the novel if Chen Bohuan is good or bad. I'm hoping that he's good. We shall find out. We know that he's dead. His corpse, we saw his corpse, but we don't know how he died, so we'll find out about that. Hopefully in the next few chapters. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Give justice to Lo Xianxian. Okay. Yeah. I hope you guys look forward to the next reading. I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.